I gotta find me a Big Feats. A Big Feats episode to listen to while I have my munchies. The munchies. Whereabouts are my Big Feats? Come on. Give me a Big Feats. Fine, I'll go to home then. Sheesh. Don't look behind you. Oh, hold on a second. There's an article about that the Ayla Mouse in Las Vegas. Let's go check out that one real quick while I have my munchies. Okay, and I found a Big Feats episode. Let's kill the musics. And let's grab the Ayla Mouse video. It's the Ayla Mouse.
It was the...
Ah! They both started playing. Okay, here we go. Let's start with the Ayla Mouse report first.
It was the streak seen across the sky, now seen around the world. This, as our 8 News Now investigators confirm, Metro actually set up cameras at this home where a family called 911.
That one looks like a believable meteor or comet. However, in conjunction with the fact that there's those other reports about the Ayla Mouse in the backyard, it makes you wonder if they were at all involved in some way. Maybe there was a collision, or one caused the other, or if they're just entirely separate incidents. But the fact that there are two, this is that thingy that happened afterward, the second thing that was also caught on the police officer's body cam, the badge cam. So it's interesting. Is there anything caught on this camera in terms of audio or video from the initial crash? It's really weird. Metro set up cameras after alien call.
Set up cameras at this home where a family called 911 claiming to see aliens in their backyard.
Ayla Mouse.
And tonight, a fierce debate is underway about the legitimacy of an alleged UFO crash. Good evening, I'm Janice Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. Our 8 News Now investigators reporting about terrified members of a local family who told police they had aliens in their backyard. Chief Investigator George Knapp here to piece it all together.
You know, as with all things UFO, the public debate is ferocious and ongoing. Was it all a hoax? Were we duped? Was it all an evil plot, a cover-up, all of the above? We took another look at the hubbub to separate wheat from chaff. The fireball captured on a police body cam on the night of April 30th was real. The American Meteor Society says witnesses reported seeing it all across the West, from northeastern Utah to Southern California. Another Las Vegas resident sent us a video of the same object recorded on her home camera.
Investigation by Nexstar station KLAS.
As the story of the Las Vegas incident spread across newscasts and social media, one of NASA's planetary defense officers weighed in to say it was likely a small meteor that fell to Earth hundreds of miles away from Las Vegas. Police videos obtained by 8 News Now indicate Metro officers were among the witnesses.
One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious.
The appearance of the meteor seemingly triggered the events that followed. A frightened family called 911 and told police they had 10-foot-tall alien beings in their backyard. Officers responded to the home minutes later, interviewed the witnesses, canvassed the area, and cautiously inspected the backyard to look for intruders. One thing noticed by the officers was a circle in the soil. In conversations with us and in a podcast interview, Angel, the main witness, suggested the circle might have been created when an unknown object landed in the yard. Social media sleuths have since pointed out that the circular image has been viewable via Google Earth for more than a year. The family told us by phone they had seen suspicious vehicles with men in black types checking out their home. Turns out there is substance to that. A retired police officer fessed up on News Nation that he spent days staking out the house to see what, if anything, unfolded. What about those reports that Metro installed a special surveillance camera atop the house, presumably to watch for intruders, human or otherwise, or overzealous media? Turns out that's true as well. Metro confirmed as much in a statement to 8 News Now's David Charnes. The system stayed on the roof for days. What about the Ring camera video with the weird noise? The main witness, Angel, intimated to us the video was recorded by one of his neighbors, and the audio was from the April 30th UFO crash. It wasn't. The security camera video was recorded in mid-April, according to the man who first posted the clip. He doesn't want his name used, but says the recording was from a fireball that passed over his home in the southwestern part of the valley 2 weeks prior to the alleged alien encounter. The family declined to be interviewed by us, but members have spoken elsewhere and stick to their claims of seeing aliens in the backyard. Dozens of people on social media have analyzed and dissected the images with various claims of aliens spotted in the shadows. Police do not believe this was a hoax call, which could be a crime if done intentionally. In the fervid swamp known as UFO world, our coverage of the story was itself seen as a dastardly plot to distract attention away from a prominent whistleblower named David Grush, who stepped forward around the same time. Grush unveiled his explosive on-camera account on News Nation, which is owned by the parent company of KLAS. In spite of the local news story, Grush's story was reported by news media all over the world. Curses foiled again.
All right. So, what do you make of this whistleblower, David Grush?
He first reached out to me about a year ago. We've been in contact ever since. He's the real deal. I mean, he had a distinguished career in the Air Force. Then he went to work for a 3-letter agency you probably haven't heard of, the NGA, which basically tracks everything. In space, in the air, in the ocean, under the ocean, on land, they keep tracks of everything. He has the highest security clearances in our government, and in that capacity, he interacted with something like 2,000 SAP, Special Access Programs, and he learned along the way that we're reverse engineering crash flying saucers, and he's been telling that to Congress under oath, behind closed.
This guy, he works for the Men in Blacks. He's rewriting everybody's thinkies after the fact. They're trying to hide the truth. I know exactly what's going on. I know the truth. These guys can't, they're not gonna fool me. Nuh-uh. They can't use the neurotransmitter, the neuro deleter, brain, mind, memory, scraper on me. Nuh-uh, not me. Yeah, so I figured that I didn't really look at much of the crop circle stuffs, the imprint of that circle, but just this is my first time looking at it, and I can tell that's fucking vehicles. Those are regular vehicles. There are other tracks here from other trucks and cars. Like, no, I don't think that's a Alamau spaceship. That's definitely easily explainable, even if we didn't have the satellite imagery from years ago. My first thought for these would be, yeah, those are just tracks. There's so many more other tracks around right immediately in the immediate vicinity, and so I wouldn't consider that as valid evidence or valid supporting evidence in this situation here. Yeah, so looking at it from here, it definitely does look like a meteor. On the officer's dash cam, body cam, it definitely looked a bit different because of the lighting. And yeah, so the way I thought this happened is that this event with the meteor, I thought this happened as they were responding to that family who supposedly saw the Elamaus. But I guess the audio is from the footage, from a different footage. So here's the footage from the Las Vegas incident. Here's the footage from the officer's dash cam as he's observing the meteor. But I think that the audio that is typically played with that is from earlier, because here when they play the audio where he says, "Me and my partner saw something falling from the sky," there's no video attached to that, which I thought was from here as they're looking at this meteor fall, but it's not. So I assume then that these are separate instances, different moments from that night. I need a clear outline timeline of when these events happened, because it seems as if here, the way they're presenting in here, it almost seems like if they're from different times, that audio and that video, which I thought were from the same exact moment. But I guess this seems to suggest that it's edited that way. I don't know. It's strange. I'll have to do my own little investigation. Anyway, let me have my foods as well. We'll listen to the big feats. This one is titled "The One Who Runs and Hides." Yeah, I will.
And it's on a lot of acres. You guys can hear it. This isn't Bigfoot related. I just found it fascinating. He was in this mine, and if you fast forward to about the 12-minute mark, he's about halfway through the mine, and he starts to hear something. And I've listened to this over and over and over again, and I swear it's voices.
No.
I'm gonna.
Oh no, is it spooky? He's got more spooky sounds. I'm gonna have nightmares.
Trying to amplify the sound a little bit so you guys can hear it. Tell me what you think.
And then you can see how big these timbers are. That's about almost a foot in diameter, the big cross timbers. So they had to put big ones in here to hold up all of this rock. And you can see right here where some of these boards are bending. Do you hear that? Sounds like, what, is that wind? I don't know if you can hear that on the camera.
Holy fuck, this hurts my ears. It's so loud, and I don't hear anything. They're making too much noise. Stop moving. Fuck. Stop moving, stop talking, stop breathing. I can't breathe.
Do you hear that? It stopped. Well, I don't know what that is. That doesn't sound like wind, but that's crazy. I don't know if that's a bird or I don't know what that is. It almost sounds like snakes, but wow. I've heard some weird stuff in mines, but
It's the parcel tongue. Gamma, he's a myth.
that is definitely creepy. I don't know what that is. So let's get out of here and head back out to the portal. That was weird.
He keeps talking when the sound is on. Like, fucking stop talking. Let me listen. I can't fucking hear you. You can't say, "Do you hear that?" and then fucking talk over it. What the heck? Shut the fuck up. Let me hear. For what's it called? For preservation's sake and posterity's sake, shut up and just record the sound. What the heck? Fuck this guy. He don't know nothing.
I don't hear it. Wow, that was strange. All right, so, Jesus. That's the wall deck mine.
I'm not sure how well that translated over the podcast, but if you get a chance, it's on SasquatchChronicles.com. Go watch the video. It's creepy, especially when you get headphones in. I swear it sounds like voices. But anyway, I don't know how well that translated to what you guys hear. Strange to say the least. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Bill to the show. Bill, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I know your encounter took place in Utah. It was several years back, wasn't it, Bill, that you saw this? You were just a kid.
Yeah, I think I was like 14 or 15, and I'm 52 now, so I don't know, I guess you'd have to do the math. It's quite a ways back.
Yeah. Well, if you would you walk us into it and tell us what you were doing and what did you see?
Well, I grew up in a mountain valley area in Utah, and I grew up in a town that had a big reservoir, and we used to go fish it. And certain times of the year, the reservoir would get super low, so we could fish the inlet, and other times of the year it was underwater. So me and my friend were just crossing over high water mark, and we were on a hillside. Well, it's kind of a hill, 45 to get down in. And so we looked down in the willows. I saw something that looked like it was hunched over, sitting on its haunches, digging in the ground with its back to us. And about the time, I saw it, my buddy was kind of jumping around, flipping around because he'd seen a snake, and I grabbed him and turned him to look at it. And about that time, it kind of stood up, but not all the way straight, and just plowed through the willows and the brush, just making a bunch of racket.
Yeah, and I
That's
know.
pretty much what we saw.
Yeah, I know it was a short encounter, and I know when it got up, did it run off like a man or did it run off like a bear?
It ran off on two legs. You know what I mean? But I guess what I keep saying is it didn't straight up and straighten its back all the way. It was kind of, maybe it's just how its knees are bent or something a little weird. But it didn't. To me, it didn't look like it was all the way up, but it was on two legs. It was bipedal. It got up and ran off.
Yeah, and you would think if it would have been a bear, it would have dropped all fours and bolted off. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing, for weeks after that. I mean, he was a year younger than me. Being in our teens, we tried to ration out what else it could have been. Could have been, any wildlife down there, from wild pig to bear, like you said, because this ground pretty much doesn't. I mean, it runs. It's all river bottoms, and it goes all the way up into a higher mountain reservoir, and so it doesn't get. I mean, it probably certain areas of this doesn't see anybody for years at a time. No one's ever down in there, and some places you can't even get down in, but it's so private, so remote in a populated area because nobody can get in it, and it's all posted and all that good stuff that. So there's bear in there, and there's bigger game in there. But
yeah,
like you said, that's the closest thing I could think that could run. But bear don't run on their two hind legs.
Yeah,
they'll get up and walk a little bit and then go back down.
Back down, yeah. And I think even at the age you were at, I think that you guys would have recognized it being a bear right away. Even a bear standing up, it still has the outline of a bear. And what you saw, did it resemble anything like that, or was it more like a man? I realize this is a really quick glimpse you're getting.
Well, to me, it was, more like a man. But I mean, I listened to your podcast, and I've read up on him a little bit, and my uncle was really into him and the Sasquatch deal, and everybody has always told me how they're so massive and big. And I mean, being about, I don't know, it's so hard west distance from that long ago. But, half a football field, because football field, looking down onto it, the creature, itself, it didn't seem to be massive to me. I mean, it was probably 6.5 feet tall, but it wasn't, tree trunk legs and stuff like that, like I always hear. And from what I remember, I really think it was either a small female or it was a juvenile. I don't think it was full grown. It just didn't seem huge.
Yeah, it wasn't King Kong sitting there digging in the dirt.
No, it wasn't. And we scared it just as much as it scared us. I mean, it wanted nothing to do with us. And we were, I think if my buddy wouldn't have been jumping around like he was, we probably could have got a pretty good look at it, the way the wind was blowing and stuff, because we weren't, it wasn't blowing down on it from where we were. But him screaming about a blow snake, and it finally figured out that something was watching it, and it just wanted to get away. It just wanted to get in cover. So,
let me ask you. I know you've been looking into this for a while, Bill. What do you think Sasquatch is? What's your own personal opinion?
That's kind of a hard one. I personally think it's a form of great ape. I mean, I think it's more intelligent than not as in quite at the same level we're at, or maybe more. But I think it's another. I just think it's another class of ape. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
everybody has their own. I guess we'll never know until we have one either in a cage or.
That's why I love that question, because there's no wrong answer. I mean, at the end of the day, anyone really could be right. And it's so hard, that's why I like the question to get, what are people thinking this thing is? But But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it. I know it was a brief encounter, but I find them all fascinating, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, not a problem. And in fact, let me ask you, what do you think they are? Because I always hear you ask people, but I've heard, I guess maybe I don't pay attention to everything you say, but so what do you think Sasquatch is? Do you think it's a great ape, or do you think it's more human?
Well, if I go into my opinion, it'll be an hour-long show. I mean, I could give you a presentation on it.
I got you.
I mean, I don't really have a quick answer for you, but I think there's more to it than just an ape. I really do. And a lot of times, I think that when people have encounters like what you had, Bill, where it's a quick glimpse or even a longer glimpse, but they're out hiking or they're out hunting, and it's a real brief encounter with these things, you could go with the argument that it's an unknown primate we haven't been able to catch up with. You could absolutely go with that argument. There's a couple other things that fall apart with that argument, like why hasn't this come out when it's on every continent on this planet? These things are found. Why haven't we caught up with this thing? And it really makes you stop and go, I don't know. That's strange. Why haven't we, the argument of like, well, there's no bodies because the forest eats the bodies. Well, that's true, but these things are found in Arizona. These things are found in New Mexico. These things are found in Nevada, where there's not a ton of forests for the most part. And so there's so many weird things. When people have these things on their property, there's a lot of weird things that go on with these things that your normal person wouldn't ever hear about, because their encounter was brief. They saw it, it ran off, it looked like an animal, it growled like an animal, it threw rocks like a monkey, that sort of thing. But when people have these things on their property, there is so many weird things that go on I can't even tell you. I mean, if I went over and actually gave a presentation on this, I'd probably be exhausted afterwards, because there's so much information that people have told me. So I guess to answer your question, I really don't know what they are. I think that they are more than a primate, and like a non-human primate. I don't think they're human.
I've heard some of the woo-woo end, like maybe they're dimensional, or maybe they're an alien, maybe they're like I don't think we will ever know until we actually have one.
Well, yeah, and
that's the thing. Will we ever?
And the other
we
thing,
may never.
Yeah, you're right. And the other thing too is, I know that's being covered up, but why would they cover? I think it is
too, and I think it is because of logging. But that's just my opinion, and I could be totally wrong. Because I think that if it was an animal that's well known, and you say that the government covers it up, I mean, this is just off the hip. But if they come out and say yes, it exists, it has to be protected. Well, there goes. That's a lot of land that's going to have to be protected. You know what I mean? There's logging and everything else would be affected by that. So, economy, money, the big evil.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. If you didn't want it to come out, you just look the other way.
Yeah.
If it was just a monkey out there running around, it would make sense that the government would just kind of look the other way and not really ever address it. But why is it when people have real evidence that these things are around, there's a cover-up to the extent of like a UFO cover-up? I've had many people off the air tell me some guys showed up and wanted this and wanted that. It's people who have real evidence. Well, why would there be such a why would they care? You know what I mean? Is really lumber industry have that much control over the government that they wouldn't allow this thing to come out?
And like I said, that was just shooting up the hip. I mean, if it was alien or anything, like that too, you're right. I mean, they would try harder to cover it up than just turn the other way. And I'm sure you've talked to people that you've heard things that, the rest of us know nothing about. Some people don't like sharing their stories, which is, I mean, it took me a long time to want to tell anybody about this, because it was kind of, I mean, I didn't feel like I was crazy. I know what I saw, but it was so short, I didn't want to waste anybody's time. I mean, it was just brief, it wasn't, didn't get to watch it for 30 minutes, didn't get to, didn't see it multiple times and the same scenario over years or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I mean, I'm a firm believer in him because I'm pretty sure that's what we saw. I mean, 99.9%. I don't know anything else that gets up on two legs and runs off that can sit on his haunches and scraping the dirt with hands. So,
No, it's hard to say what these things are. I hope you're right, to be honest with you. I hope I'm 100% wrong and delusional, and I hope that you're 100% right in the fact that it's just an unknown primate, non-human primate running around, or maybe even a human primate running around that we haven't been able to catch up with. That's what I'd like. I like that, but I have my
Yeah.
doubts.
No, and the more I think about too, talking to you, just brief couple minutes. I mean, these things have been reported. The Indians are reporting them. So you'd think after all that time, but I don't know if it is just another primate. It's extremely intelligent. Probably more intelligent than we give it credit for, because it's got to stay stealth all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
couldn't
would
agree
have
more.
one. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just strange when you start looking at it. Like I said, you would think the Russians would come out with it and say these things are real. 'Cause, I mean, they have them in Russia. They have as many reports as we do here in America. Same thing with Australia. You think the Australian government would say, yeah, the Yowies are real. Yes, people have been seeing them forever. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. I enjoyed the chat. Like I said, I love the question. It's not meant to be a trick question by any means. It's meant to just get people's opinions and get people talking. That's the biggest problem in the Bigfoot world, which I'm not a part of. But that's their biggest problem is it's a bunch of idiots fighting with a bunch of other idiots, and no one actually talks. No one actually sits down, and everyone's so firm in what they believe this thing is. If you're so firm and you've already figured it out, then why bother being the topic? You know what I mean? It's good to
Yeah,
have discussions
yeah.
about it, but it's not meant to put someone on the spot and go, So I hope you didn't take it that way.
Oh no, I didn't. And I've listened to your show, your program enough to realize that wasn't it. I just don't never remember. But I haven't been listening to your podcast that long. I mean, I backtracked a few episodes off and on, but I just can't never remember what your personal opinion you thought it was. But you've given as good an answer as anybody, Stenny. You don't know.
It's true.
And
It's true.
That's a fair answer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Bill.
Okay. So I had a little bit of yummies. Unfortunately, I was not able to make the turkey sandwiches because there's no more breads. I done goofed. I messed up. But it's okay. I had other foods. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Let's see, it's called this. Okay. Also, while I was away, I managed to set up the camera. So now here's my chocolate frog, and also we had this one, the chocolate cross for Easter's. So I'm gonna have a little bit of the chocolate frogs right now, and then we'll compare that with the chocolate cross, and we will see if I don't expect them to be any good at all, because we tasted a couple of bit of the chocolate cross here for Easter, and it was not very good. I think because I had such a long break from eating the chocolates, especially these Hershey's ones. I forgot. I forgot what they tasted like, and I had never. I had read people say that it tastes like vomit, and I never understood that. But then it's been years since I've had any actual pieces of chocolate like this, and so when I had this one after years of no chocolate, then I could see what they meant by it tasting like vomit. So I'm gonna go ahead and try this one right now. The Cuddly Cuties Yummy Chocolate Candies. And it's a fork. It's this one over here, this little fork. And his heart here says, "Totally yours." I guess he's not a fork then, he's a toad. Because he says, "Totally yours." It's supposed to be for Valentine's here. You see the back? Imagine giving this to somebody for Valentine's Day. What if it tastes like shit? Which I'm sure it does. This one doesn't say anything about Valentine's Day, it's just Easter. Or it doesn't say any well wishes, it doesn't say Godspeed. Godspeed, Spider-Man. Okay, let's see. Let's open this guy up. I brought the chocolate cross from Easter to compare taste. I expect, however, that they'll both taste just as bad as each other. Am I supposed to open this from the top? Yeah, I guess from the top. Or it could be from the side too. I think it's meant to be from the side. Seeing here. I totally do not know which direction I'm supposed to open this from. Open up. Let me in. I shall consume the toad in all its glory. What? Open up. Let me in. 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 Okay, I'm trying to not break it. I guess it doesn't matter which. I was expecting like you'd be able to pull this out here, but I suppose not. Oh, I don't want to get this on my fucking table. Let me on my desk mat. Let's pop this over here. Just in case I have to throw up. Okay. Totally yours. He's a fork, sis. He's a fork. Look into his eyes. Look into my eyes and tell me the truth. Why is it? He looks like he's right there. On this left side over here. It looks like they painted too much with the chocolates. And also over here. And the lower left part of his right eye. From our perspective, I guess. Technically his left eye, but it's not like it really matters. There's a fucking chocolate froxes. Okay, what should I bite off first? His eye? Or his feetses? Let's do like a cross. Let's do either opposite side feet and eyes, or let's bite off his better eye, his right eye, and let's see. So far, it's not too bad. It's actually not that bad. Okay, now I'm gonna bite off his left feet from our perspective. Okay, I have had better chocolate, but I've also had worse chocolate. So this chocolate frog isn't actually too bad. However, it is very sugary. It is a lot of chocolate, so I'm not gonna eat this all at once. Let's see. It says about 2 servings per container. Serving is half a piece. How much does it have per serving? Or per, let's go per container. This whole entire thing has 44 grams of sugar. Yikes. 45 milligrams of sodium, less than 5 milligrams cholesterol, 21 grams total fat, 46 grams total carbs. Oh, okay, so total sugars is 44 grams and includes added sugars of 42 grams. So I guess that means there's 2 grams of other sugars. Protein, 2 grams. It's got a bunch of protein. 2 grams of protein. It's a whole bunch. We gotta use this for my workouts. Okay, I'm gonna try some of this chocolate cross again to compare. If I recall, it tastes terrible in comparison to the chocolate frog, so we'll go ahead and see if that remains the case. Oh, I think, yeah, we eat the breads. Let me go ahead and eat the fishies here. The Jesus fish. Okay, well, it definitely tastes worse. But it's not as bad as I remember it. I guess maybe at the end there's that like that vomity aftertaste. So I think what may have happened is that all those long years of not having had the Hershey's chocolate made me forget that it actually tastes like vomit. And so because I had it recently, a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago for Easter, my taste buds have been a bit more attuned to consuming it, and so it's like, okay, fine. If you're gonna eat this, go ahead and just accept it as food. And so either that's why it doesn't taste as bad as I remember, or the fact that I had the chocolate frogs first, just like that coated my tongue and my mouth, and so maybe that is what shielded me from much of the vomity taste of the Hershey's chocolate cross. It's more than likely the chocolate frog that saved me. So I'll have to do another taste test another day once I have a cleansed palate. And from there, I'll have a more accurate assessment of the taste and flavor of the chocolates. Okay, I'm gonna get my waters. Okay, I'm gonna take these chocolates back to the kitchens, and then we will pick up where we left off when the internet died. Here on, we'll reread the previous little section, and then we'll just continue as if nothing had gone wrong. Okay, give me a second. Okay. Okie dokie. Dokie dokie literature club. Nya woo. Maybe the fact that the internet died was slightly a blessing in disguise, so that I could accomplish a couple things. I could go eat. I could get a couple of big feats and spooky things in there, and I could set up the camera. Set up the camera so I can eat the chocolates. It's still giving me the audio. The YouTube is telling me that the audio bitrate is below what they want. Let me go look up what they want versus what I have. YouTube live stream audio bitrate. Choose encoder settings. Have 1080p 60 video bitrate. Audio codec AAC or MP3, bitrate encoding CBR. Doesn't specify. What the fuck do you want? Why are you telling me this and then you're not giving me any info, any intel? The audio stream current bitrate, 0, is lower than the recommended bitrate. Okay, let's do YouTube live stream recommended audio bitrate. Every now and then again it pops up suggestion saying the audio bitrate 0 is lower. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just a bug. Typically what you want is, if you have a good connection, then you want a 6000 bitrate, if not aim for 4500. That's video bitrate though. He's literally asking specifically for audio. Fuck these people who don't read and just like, oh, I should do a bitrate. That must mean he's talking about fucking video. Fuck off, dude. Read the fucking thing. Dumbass bitch. Kill yourself. Cringe yourself in a video game. Not sure. Just ignored it. Audio bitrate warning on YouTube live stream. Are you seeing the warning on the YouTube interface? We have been experiencing the same thing after the latest software update. The stream is fine, but it always shows 0. Yeah, I guess it's just a bug or whatever. Nobody has an actual solution because the problem itself doesn't make sense. The problem that it's trying to warn you about makes no sense. Okay, this is the second time I've had this warning today. I've had it earlier. It's gone now. Just randomly it's gone. Okay. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for wasting my time. Okay, we left off previously on Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We were on chapter 12, Mirror of Erised. They had just had their Christmas, their happy, yummy, funny, cool Christmas. They were playing chess, and now they're going to a steepings. It had been Harry's best Christmas day ever. Yet something had been nagging at the back of his mind all day. Not until he climbed into bed was he free to think about it. The invisibility cloak, and whoever had sent it. Ron, full of turkey and cake, and with nothing mysterious to bother him, fell asleep almost as soon as he'd drawn the curtains of his four-poster. Harry leaned over the side of his own bed and pulled the cloak out from under it. His father's. This had been his father's. He let the material flow over his hands, smother the... I did it again. I said smother. Oh my god, why do I do this to myself? Hang on, do I have the chat set up properly here? I actually don't know. It looks like it's good. Okay. His father's. This had been his father's. He let the material flow over his hands, smoother than silk, light as air. Use it well, the note had said. He had to try it now. He slipped out of bed and wrapped the cloak around himself. Looking down at his legs, he saw only moonlight and shadows. It was a very funny feeling. Use it well. Suddenly, Harry felt wide awake. The whole of Hogwarts was open to him in this cloak. Excitement flooded through him as he stood there in the dark and silence. He could go anywhere in this. Anywhere, and Filch would never know. Ron grunted in his sleep. Should Harry wake him? Something held him back. His father's cloak. He felt that this time. The first time, he wanted to use it alone. He crept out of the dormitory, down the stairs, across the common room, and climbed through the portrait hole. "Who's there?" squawked the fat lady. Harry said nothing. He walked quickly down the corridor. Where should he go? He stopped, his heart racing and thought. And then it came to him. The restricted section in the library. He'd be able to read as long as he liked, as long as it took to find out who Flamel was. He set off, drawing the invisibility cloak tight around him as he walked. The library was pitch black and very eerie. Harry lit a lamp to see his way along the rows of books. The lamp looked as if it was floating along in midair, and even though Harry could feel his arms supporting it, the sight gave him the creeps. The restricted section was right at the back of the library. Stepping carefully over the rope that separated these books from the rest of the library, he held up his lamp and read the titles. They didn't tell him much. Their peeling, faded gold letters spelled words in languages Harry couldn't understand. Some had no title at all. One book had a dark stain on it that looked horribly like blood. The hairs on the back of Harry's neck prickled. Maybe he was imagining it, maybe not, but he thought a faint whispering was coming from the books, as though they knew someone was there who shouldn't be. He had to start somewhere. Setting the lamp down carefully on the floor, he looked along the bottom shelf for an interesting-looking book. A large black and silver volume caught his eye. He pulled it out with difficulty because it was very heavy, and balancing it on his knee, let it fall open. A piercing, blood-curdling shriek split the silence. The book was screaming. Harry snapped it shut, but the shriek went on and on, one high, unbroken, ear-splitting note. He stumbled backward and knocked over his lamp, which went out at once. Panicking, he heard footsteps coming down the corridor outside. Stuffing the shrieking book back on the shelf, he ran for it. He passed Filch in the doorway. Filch's pale, wild eyes looked straight through him, and Harry slipped under Filch's outstretched arm and streaked off up the corridor, the book's shrieks still ringing in his ears. He came to a sudden halt in front of a tall suit of armor. He had been so busy getting away from the library, he hadn't paid attention to where he was going. Perhaps because it was dark, he didn't recognize where he was at all. There was a suit of armor near the kitchens, he knew, but he must be 5 floors above there. Oh, okay. It's like this next part is a little confusing because it's like a solid paragraph of dialogue without saying who it is. You asked me to come directly to you, Professor. If anyone was wandering around that night, and And somebody's been in the library. Restricted section. Harry felt the blood drain out of his face. Wherever he was, Filch must know a shortcut, because his soft, greasy voice was getting nearer, and, to his horror, it was Snape who replied. The restricted section. Well, they can't be far. We'll catch them. Harry stood rooted to the spot as Filch and Snape came around the corner ahead. They couldn't see him, of course, but it was a narrow corridor, and if they came much nearer, they'd knock right into him. The cloak didn't stop him from being solid. He backed away as quietly as he could. A door stood ajar to his left. It was his only hope. He squeezed through it, holding his breath, trying not to move, and, to his relief, he managed to get inside the room without their noticing anything. They walked straight past, and Harry leaned against the wall, breathing deeply, listening to the footsteps dying away. That had been close, very close. It was a few seconds before he noticed anything about the room he had hidden in. It looked like an unused classroom. The dark shapes of desks and chairs were piled against the walls, and there was an upturned wastepaper basket. But propped against the wall facing him was something that didn't look as if it belonged there. Something that looked as if someone had just put it there to keep it out of the way. It was a magnificent mirror, as high as the ceiling, with an ornate gold frame standing on 2 clawed feet. There was an inscription carved around the top. Erized stra ehru. Oh my god, should I just read it forward? Okay. Well, it looks like gibberish. Erized stra erhu oit ube kafru oit onwasi. Will it be explained later? I think I'll just read it backwards right now. I show not you. Oh, is it the other way? Desire arts. No, it must be okay. It must be explained later on. Then we'll see. Because I think the spacing isn't the same way it would be. So looks like it might say careful here or something. I'm not sure. Well, we'll check it out later. I'm pretty sure somebody who may or may not appear later in this chapter may or may not clarify or specify exactly what that text is supposed to say. Okay, so there was an inscription carved around the top. His panic fading now that there was no sound of Filch and Snape, Harry moved nearer to the mirror, wanting to look at himself, but see no reflection again. Oh, okay. Like my brain's like so like what? What did I just? I forgot he's in the invisibility cloak, so he doesn't see a reflection. Okay. I was trying to make sense of what the fuck I just read. Like, hold on a second. His panic fading now that there was no sound of Filch and Snape. Harry moved nearer to the mirror, wanting to look at himself, but see no reflection again. He stepped in front of it. He had to clap his hands to his mouth to stop himself from screaming. He whirled around. His heart was pounding far more furiously than when the book had screamed, for he had seen not only himself in the mirror, but a whole crowd of people standing right behind him. but the room was empty. Breathing very fast, he turned slowly back to the mirror. There he was, reflected in it, white and scared looking, and there, reflected behind him, were at least 10 others. Harry looked over his shoulder, but still no one was there. Or were they all invisible too? Was he, in fact, in a room full of invisible people, and this mirror's trick was that it reflected them, invisible or not? He looked in the mirror again. A woman standing right behind his reflection was smiling at him and waving. He reached out a hand and felt the air behind him. If she was really there, he'd touch her. Their reflections were so close together, but he felt only air. She and the others existed only in the mirror. She was a very pretty woman. She had dark red hair and her eyes. Her eyes are just like mine, Harry thought, edging a little closer to the glass. Bright green, exactly the same shape. But then he noticed that she was crying, smiling, but crying at the same time. The tall, thin, black-haired man standing next to her put his arm around her. He wore glasses, and his hair was very untidy. It struck up at the back, just like Harry's did. Harry was so close to the mirror now that his nose was nearly touching that of his reflection. "Mum," he whispered. "Dad?" They just looked at him, smiling, and slowly Harry looked into the faces of the other people in the mirror and saw other pairs of green eyes like his, other noses like his, even a little old man who looked as though he had Harry's knobby knees. Harry was looking at his family for the first time in his life. The Potter... What happened? Chill. The Potters smiled and waved at Harry, and he stared hungrily back at them. His hands pressed flat against the glass, as though he was hoping to fall right through it and reach them. He had a powerful kind of ache inside him, half joy, half terrible sadness. How long he stood there, he didn't know. The reflections did not fade, and he looked and looked until a distant noise brought him back to his senses. He couldn't stay here. He had to find his way back to bed. He tore his eyes away from his mother's face, whispered, "I'll be back," and hurried from the room. What happened? What is it? What is making you sad? Well, you miss your family too? You miss your mommy kitty and your daddy kitty and all your brothers and sisters? It's okay, I'm your family now. Me and the Arpies and the monkey, the fat Pikachus. It's your family. 'Cause you's a little baby. She's a little baby. Stay over here, okay? Give you the pets while you read Harry Potter. I guess that's a good spot for her to have come up here because there's a break here. You could have woken me up, said Ron crossly. You can come tonight. I'm going back. I want to show you the mirror. Sorry, buddy. You can come tonight. I'm going back. I want to show you the mirror. I'd like to see your mom and dad, Ron said eagerly. And I... Oh, okay. It's just Harry responding. I'd like to see your mom and dad, Ron said eagerly. And I want to see all your family, all the Weasleys. You'll be able to show me your other brothers and everyone." "You can see them any old time," said Ron. "Just come round my house this summer. Anyway, maybe it only shows dead people. Shame about not finding Flamel, though. Have some bacon or something. Why aren't you eating anything?" Harry couldn't eat. He had seen his parents and would be seeing them again tonight. He had almost forgotten about Flamel. It didn't seem very important anymore. Who cared about the three-headed dog? Who cared? Who cared what the three-headed dog was guarding? What did it matter if Snape stole it, really? "Are you all right?" said Ron. "You look odd." What Harry feared most was that he might not be able to find the mirror room again. With Ron covered in the cloak too, they had to walk much more slowly the next night. They tried retracing Harry's route from the library, wandering around the dark passageways for nearly an hour. "I'm freezing," said Ron. "Let's forget it and go back." "No," Harry hissed. "I know it's here somewhere." They passed the ghost of a tall witch gliding in the opposite direction, but saw no one else. Just as Ron started moaning that his feet were dead with cold, Harry spotted the suit of armor. "It's here, just here. Yes." They pushed the door open. Harry dropped the cloak from around his shoulders and ran to the mirror. There they were. His mother... Oh, I thought that was somebody talking. It's not. They pushed the door open. Harry dropped the cloak from around his shoulders and ran to the mirror. There they were. His mother and father beamed at the sight of him. "Come on, lay down. You still sleeping kittens." Okay, I guess she wants to leave. There they were. His mother and father beamed at the sight of him. "See?" Harry whispered. "I can't see anything. Look at them. There are loads of them." "I can only see you." "Look at it properly. Go on, stand where I am." Harry stepped aside, but with Ron in front of the mirror, he couldn't see his family anymore. Just Ron in his paisley pajamas. Ron, though, was staring transfixed at his image. "Look at me," he said. "Can you see all your family standing around you?" "No, I'm alone. But I'm different. I look older. And I'm head boy." "What?" "I am. I'm wearing the badge like Bill used to. And I'm holding the house cup and the Quidditch cup. I'm Quidditch captain too." Ron tore his eyes away from the splendid sight to look directly at Harry. "Do you think this mirror shows the future?" "How can it? All my family are dead. Let me have another look." "You had it to yourself all last night. Give me a bit more time." "You're only holding the Quidditch cup. What's interesting about that? I want to see my parents." "Don't push me." A sudden noise outside in the corridor put an end to their discussion. They hadn't realized how loudly they'd been talking. "Quick!" Ron threw the cloak back over them as the luminous eyes of Mrs. Norris came round the door. Oh my gosh, another little bugs. Another little bugs is on my screen. Fuck. Angie. Barbie, get the bug. Okay, I guess I should go feed the kitties actually. So this is a good time. Now that we're reading about Mrs. Norris, let's go feed the kitties. It's the kitty feeding time. Give me a second. Oh, I stopped it before the beats. Okay, the kitties are fed. So let's see, they are hiding back under the cloak, and Mrs. Norris is stare bearing at them. Here we go. Ron drew the cloak back over them as the luminous eyes of Mrs. Norris came round the door. Ron and Harry stood quite still, both thinking the same. Did the cloak work on cats? After what seemed an age, she turned and left. This isn't safe. She might have gone for Filch. I bet she heard us. Come on. And Ron pulled Harry out of the room. The snow still hadn't melted the next morning. Want to play chess, Harry? Said Ron. No. Isildur, no. Bugs, no. Why don't we go down and visit Hagrid? No. You go. I know what you're thinking, Harry. That mirror. Don't go back tonight. Why not? I don't know. I've just got a bad feeling about it. And anyway, you've had too many close shaves. That's supposed to be close shaves, or I guess close shaves works, right? Patches, little baby. I don't know. I've just got a bad feeling about it. And anyway, you've had too many close shaves already. Filch, Snape, and Mrs. Norris are wandering around. So what if they can't see you? What if they walk into you? What if you knock something over? You sound like Hermione. I'm serious, Harry. Don't go. But Harry only had one thought in his head, which was to get back in front of the mirror, and Ron wasn't going to stop him. The third night he found his way more quickly than before. He was walking so fast he knew he was making more noise than was wise, but he didn't meet anyone. And there were his mother and father smiling at him again, and one of his grandfathers nodding happily. Harry sank down to sit on the floor in front of the mirror. There was nothing to stop him from staying here all night with his family. Nothing at all, except, "So, back again, Harry." Harry felt as though his insides had turned to ice. He looked behind him. Sitting on one of the desks by the hall. Sitting on one of the desks by the wall was none other than Albus Dumbledore. Harry must have walked straight past him, so desperate to get to the mirror he hadn't noticed him. I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," said Dumbledore, and Harry was relieved that he was smiling. And Harry was relieved to see that he was smiling. "So," said Dumbledore, slipping off the desk to sit on the floor with Harry, "you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Erised." "I didn't know it was called that, sir." "But I expect you've realized by now what it does." It shows me my family." "And it showed your friend Ron himself as head boy." "How did you know?" "I don't need the cloak to become invisible," said Dumbledore gently. "Now, can you think what the Mirror of Erised shows us all?" Harry shook his head. "Let me explain. The happiest man on earth would be able to use the Mirror of Erised like a normal mirror,
And that is, he would look into it and see himself exactly as he is. Does that help?
Harry thought. Then he said slowly, "It shows us what we want. Whatever we want."
Yes and no,
said Dumbledore quietly.
It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. Ronald Weasley, who has always been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of all of them. However, this mirror will give us neither knowledge or truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible.
The mirror... Oh, fuck.
The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry, and I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it...
What? I think she hates my Dumbledore voice.
If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. It does not do well to dwell on your dreams and forget to live. Remember that. Now, why don't you put that admirable cloak back on and get off to bed?
Harry stood up. "Sir, Professor Dumbledore, can I ask you something?"
Obviously, you've just done so, Dumbledore smiled. You may ask me one more thing, however.
What do you see when you look in the mirror?
I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks.
Harry stared.
One can never have enough socks,
said Dumbledore.
Another Christmas has come and gone, and I didn't get a single pair. People will insist on giving me books.
It was only when he was back in bed that it struck Harry that Dumbledore might not have been quite truthful. But then, he thought, as he shoved Scabbers off his pillow, it had been quite a personal question. Chapter 13, Burger King Foot Lettuce. Chapter 13 is Nicholas Flamel, and the chapter artwork is a scene, a nighttime scene, with some stars and a crescent moon by the very top. And then there are a bunch of trees, the kind of trees that I draw, the little Z trees, the pine trees, I think, evergreen trees. And then there's a cloaked figure, a cloaked person, running into the tree line, into the Forbidden Forest, I suppose. We can see his feet because he's running, and the cloak goes as far as his knees. And it's a kind of a spooky chapter artwork. Let me get some water, and then we will continue. Hey, Arby's. Chapter 13, Nicholas Flamel. Dumbledore. Dumbledore had convinced Harry not to go looking for the Mirror of Erised again, and for the rest of and for the rest of the Christmas holidays the invisibility cloak stayed folded at the bottom of his trunk. Harry wished he could forget what he'd seen in the mirror as easily, but he couldn't. He started having nightmares. Over and over again he dreamed about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light, while a high voice cackled with laughter. "You see, Dumbledore was right. The mirror could drive you mad," said Ron, when Harry told him about these dreams. Hermione, who came back the day before term started, took a different view of things. She was torn between horror at the idea of Harry being out of bed, roaming the school 3 nights in a row, if Filch had caught you, and disappointment that he hadn't at least found out who Nicholas Flamel was. They had almost given up hope of ever finding Flamel in a library book, even though Harry was still sure he'd read the name somewhere. Once term had started, they were back to skimming through books for 10 minutes during their breaks. Harry had even less time than the other two because Quidditch practice had started again. Wood was working the team harder than ever. Even the endless rain that had replaced the snow couldn't dampen his spirits. The Weasleys complained that Wood was becoming a fanatic, but Harry was on Wood's side. If they won their next match against Hufflepuff, they would overtake Slytherin in the House Championship for the first time in 7 years. Quite apart from wanting to win, Harry found that he had fewer nightmares when he was tired out after training. Then, during a particularly wet and muddy practice session, Wood gave the team a bit of bad news. He'd just gotten very angry with the Weasleys, who kept dive-bombing each other and pretending to fall off their brooms. "Will you stop messing around?" he yelled. That's exactly the sort of thing that'll lose us the match. Snape's refereeing this time, and he'll be looking for any excuse to knock points off Gryffindor. George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words. "Snape's refereeing?" He spluttered through a mouthful of mud. "When's he ever refereed a Quidditch match? He's not going to be fair if we might overtake Slytherin." The rest of the team landed next to George to complain too. "It's not my fault," said Wood. "We've just got to make sure we play a clean game, so Snape hasn't got an excuse to pick on us." Which was all very well, thought Harry, but he had another reason for not wanting Snape near him while he was playing Quidditch. The rest of the team hung back to talk to one another as usual at the end of practice, but Harry headed straight back to the Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Chess was the only thing Hermione ever lost at, something Harry and Ron thought was very good for her. Oh my god, they hate women! What the heck? "Don't talk to me for a moment," said Ron when Harry sat down next to him. "I need to concentrate." He caught sight of Harry's face. "What's the matter with you? You look terrible." Speaking quietly so that no one else would hear, Harry told the other two about Snape's sudden, sinister desire to be a Quidditch referee. Sinister desire. That's pretty funny. "Don't play," said Hermione at once. "Say you're ill," said Ron. Pretend to break your leg," Hermione suggested. "Really break your leg," said Ron. "I can't," said Harry. "There isn't a reserve seeker. If I back out, Gryffindor can't play at all." At that moment, Neville toppled into the common room. How he had managed to climb through the portrait hole was anyone's guess, because his legs had been stuck together with what they recognized at once as the leg locker curse. He must have had to bunny hop all the way up to Gryffindor Tower. Everyone fell over laughing except Hermione, who leapt up and performed the counter curse. Neville's legs sprang apart, and he got to his feet, trembling. "What happened?" Hermione asked him, leading him over to sit with Harry and Ron. "Malfoy," said Neville shakily. "I met him outside the library. He said he'd been looking for someone to practice that on." "Go to Professor McGonagall," Hermione urged Neville. "Report him." Neville shook his head. "I don't want to be more trouble," he mumbled. "You've got to stand up to him, Neville," said Ron. "He's used to walking all over people, but that's no reason to lie down in front of him and make it easier." Okay. There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that," Neville choked out. Harry felt in the pocket of his robes and pulled out a chocolate frog, the very last one from the box Hermione had given him for Christmas. He gave it to Neville, who looked as though he might cry. "You're worth 12 of Malfoy," Harry said. "The Sorting Hat chose you for Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy? And stinking Slytherin?" Neville's lips twitched in a weak smile as he unwrapped the frog. "Thanks, Harry. I think I'll go to bed. Do you want the card? You collect them, don't you?" As Neville walked away, Harry looked at the famous wizard card. "Dumbledore again," he said. "He was the first one I ever—" He gasped. He stared at the back of the card. Then he looked up at Ron and Hermione. "I found him," he whispered. "I found Flamel. I told you I'd read his name somewhere before. I read it on the train coming here. Listen to this. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945 for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel." Hermione jumped to her feet. She hadn't looked so excited since they'd gotten back the marks. Hermione jumped to her feet. She hadn't looked so excited since they'd gotten back the marks for their very first piece of homework. "Stay there," she said, and she sprinted up the stairs to the girls' dormitories. Harry and Ron barely had time to exchange mystified looks before she was dashing back, an enormous old book in her arms. "I never thought to look in here," she whispered excitedly. "I got this out of the library weeks ago for a bit of light reading." "Light?" said Ron. But Hermione told him to be quiet until she'd looked something up and started flicking frantic. "Flicking, huh?" But Hermione told him to be quiet until she looked something up and started flicking frantically through the pages, muttering to herself. At last, she found what she was looking for. "I knew it! I knew it!" "Are we allowed to speak yet?" said Ron grumpily. Hermione ignored him. "Nicholas Flamel," she whispered dramatically, "is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone." And I guess in this instance we would also know that this is the American version because it said Sorcerer's Stone as opposed to a Philosopher's Stone. This didn't have quite the effect she expected. "The what?" said Harry and Ron. "Oh, honestly, don't you two read? Look, read that. There." She pushed the book toward them, and Harry and Ron read. "The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making the Sorcerer's Stone. a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone will transform any metal into pure gold. It also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. There have been many reports of the Sorcerer's Stone over the centuries, but the only stone currently in existence belongs to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, enjoys a quiet life in Devon with his wife, perennially 658. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced. Perennially. Perenelle. Perennially. I assume that's how it's pronounced. See? Said Hermione when Harry and Ron had finished. The dog must be guarding Flamel's Sorcerer's Stone. I bet he asked Dumbledore to keep it safe for him, because they're friends and he knew someone was after it. That's why he wanted the stone moved out of Gringotts. A stone that makes gold and stops you from ever dying, said Harry. No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it. And no wonder we can find Flamel in that study of recent developments in wizardry, said Ron. He's not exactly recent if he's 665, is he? The next morning, in defense against dark arts, while copying down different ways of treating werewolf bites, Harry and Ron were still discussing what they'd do with a Sorcerer's Stone, if they had one. It wasn't until Ron said he'd buy his own Quidditch team that Harry remembered about Snape and the coming match. I'm going to play, he told Ron and Hermione. If I don't, all the Slytherins will think I'm just too scared to face Snape. I'll show them. It'll really wipe the smiles off their faces if we win. Just as long as we're not wiping you off the field, said Hermione. As the match drew nearer, however, Harry became more and more nervous. Whatever he told Ron and Hermione. I guess I should reread that one. As the match drew nearer, however, Harry became more and more nervous, whatever he told Ron and Hermione. The rest of the team wasn't too calm either. The idea of overtaking Slytherin in the house championship was wonderful. No one had done it for 7 years. But would they be allowed to, with such a biased referee? Harry didn't know whether he was imagining it or not, but he seemed to keep running into Snape wherever he went. At times, he even wondered whether Snape was following him, trying to catch him on his own. Potions lessons were turning into a... oh my god, why can't I read this? Potions lessons were turning into a sort of weekly torture. Snape was so harrible. Oh my goodness. Potions lessons were turning into a sort of weekly torture. Snape was so horrible to Harry. Could Snape possibly know they'd found out about the Sorcerer's Stone? Harry didn't see how he could, yet he sometimes had the horrible feeling that Snape could read minds. Harry knew when they wished him good luck outside the locker rooms the next afternoon that Ron and Hermione were wondering whether they'd see him alive again. This wasn't what you'd call comforting. Harry hardly heard... Jesus Christ, again with the H alliterations. Why'd you keep doing this? Harry hardly heard a word of Wood's pep talk as he pulled on his Quidditch robes and picked up his Nimbus 2000. Ron and Hermione, meanwhile, had found a place in the stands next to Neville, who couldn't understand why they looked so grim and worried, or why they had both brought their wands to the match. Little did Harry know that Ron and Hermione had been secretly practicing the leg locker curse. They'd gotten the idea from Malfoy using it on Neville, and were ready to use it on Snape if he showed any sign of wanting to hurt Harry. Now, don't forget, it's Locomotor Mortis, Hermione muttered, as Ron slipped his wand up his sleeve. I feel like that could be accidentally used to kill somebody with the mortis there. I don't know. I think like Ron is probably the worst person to try to trust with a spell that has the word mortis in it. Seems pretty spooky to me. Now don't forget, it's Locomotor Mortis, Hermione muttered as Ron slipped his wand up his sleeve. I know, Ron snapped. Don't nag. Back in the locker room, Wood had taken Harry aside. Don't want to pressure you, Potter, but if we ever need an early capture of the snitch, it's now. Finish the game now before Snape can favor Hufflepuff too much. The whole school's out there, said Fred Weasley, peering out of the door. Even, blimey, Dumbledore's come to watch. Harry's heart did a somersault. Dumbledore, he said, dashing to the door to make sure. Fred was right. There was no mistaking that silver beard. Harry could have laughed out loud with relief. He was safe. There was simply no way that Snape would dare try to hurt him if Dumbledore was watching. Perhaps that was why Snape was looking so angry as the teams marched onto the field. Angry. Something that Ron noticed too. I've never seen Snape look so mean, he told Hermione. Look, they're off. Ouch! Someone had poked Ron in the back of the head. It was Malfoy. Oh, sorry, Weasley. Didn't see you there. Malfoy grinned broadly at Crabbe and Goyle. Wonder how long Potter's going to stay on his broom this time. Anyone want to bet? What about you, Weasley? Ron didn't answer. Snape had just awarded Hufflepuff a penalty because George Weasley had hit a bludger at him. Hermione, who had all her fingers crossed in her lap, was squinting fixedly at Harry, who was circling the game like a hawk, looking for the snitch. You know how I think they choose people for the Gryffindor team? Said Malfoy loudly a few minutes later, as Snape awarded Hufflepuff another penalty for no reason at all. It's people they feel sorry for. See, there's Potter, who's got no parents. Then there's the Weasleys, who've got no money. You should be on the team, Longbottom. You've got no brains. Neville went bright red, but turned in his seat to face Malfoy. I'm worth 12 of you, Malfoy, he stammered. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle... Fuck. That was almost perfect. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle howled with laughter, but Ron, still not daring to take his eyes from the game, said, You tell him, Neville. Yeah, you tell him, Neville. Longbottom, if brains were gold, you'd be poorer than Weasley, and that's saying something. Ron's nerves were already stretched to the breaking point with anxiety about Harry. I'm warning you, Malfoy. One more word. Ron, said Hermione suddenly. Harry! What? Where? Harry had suddenly gone into a spectacular dive, which drew gasps and cheers from the crowd. Hermione stood up, her crossed fingers in her mouth, as Harry streaked toward the ground like a bullet.
You're in luck, Weasley. Potter's obviously spotted some money on the ground," said Malfoy. Ron snapped. Before Malfoy knew what was happening, Ron was on top of him, wrestling him to the ground. Neville hesitated, then clambered over the back of his seat to help. "Come on, Harry!" Hermione screamed, leaping onto her seat to watch as Harry sped straight at Snape. She didn't even notice Malfoy and Ron rolling around under her seat, or the scuffles and yelps coming from the whirl of fists that was Neville, Crabbe, and Goyle. Up in the air, Snape turned his broomstick just in time to see something scarlet shoot past him, missing him by inches. The next second, Harry had pulled out of the dive, his arm raised in triumph, the snitch clasped in his hand. The stands erupted. It had been a record. No one could ever remember the snitch being caught so quickly. Ron, where are you? The game's over. Harry's won. We've won. Gryffindor is in the lead," shrieked Hermione, dancing up and down on her seat and hugging Parvati Patil in the row in front. Is that the entire first name? Parvati Patil? Why does she have to keep reminding us that she's Indian? Because she always puts the two most Indian names right next to each other. It's kind of cringe, bro. It's kind of cringe, Joanne. Why do you gotta keep bringing up somebody's race and give them the most racist sounding name ever? Harry jumped off his broom, a foot from the ground. He couldn't believe it. He'd done it. The game was over. It had barely lasted 5 minutes. As Gryffindors came spilling onto the field, he saw Snape land nearby, white-faced and tight-lipped. Then Harry felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up into Dumbledore's smiling face. "Well done," said Dumbledore quietly, so that only Harry could hear. "Nice to see you haven't been brooding about that mirror. Been keeping busy. Excellent." Snape spat bitterly on the ground. Harry left the locker room alone sometime later. Fuck. Ow. My knees are falling asleep. Ugh. Give me a sec. Okay, I think we're all good. Harry left the locker room alone sometime later to take his Nimbus 2000 back to the broom shed. He couldn't ever remember feeling happier. He'd really done something to be proud of now. No one could say he was just a famous name anymore. The evening air had never smelled so sweet. He walked over the damp grass, reliving the last hour in his head, which was a happy blur. Gryffindors running to lift him onto their shoulders, Ron and Hermione in the distance jumping up and down, Ron cheering through a heavy nosebleed. Harry had reached the shed. He leaned against the wooden door and looked up at I was going to mix up Gryffindor and Hogwarts because Hogwarts is here and then Gryffindor is in the next line down. Harry had reached the shed. He leaned against the wooden door and looked up at Hogwarts, with its windows glowing red in the setting sun. Gryffindor in the lead. He'd done it. He'd shown Snape. And speaking of Snape, a hooded figure came swiftly down the stair. A hooded figure came swiftly down the front steps of the castle, clearly not what. Okay. I keep trying to read it as if there's a comma, but there's a period there between those two. A hooded figure came swiftly down the front steps of the castle. Clearly not wanting to be seen, it walked as fast as possible toward the forbidden forest. Harry's victory faded from his mind as he watched. He recognized the figure's prowling walk. Snape sneaking into the forest while everyone else was at dinner. What was going on? Harry jumped back on his Nimbus 2000 and took off. Gliding silently over the castle, he saw Snape enter the forest at a run. He followed. The trees were so thick he couldn't see where Snape had gone. He flew in circles, lower and lower, brushing the top branches of trees until he heard voices. He glided toward them and landed noiselessly in a towering branch. Fuck. What is that description? A towering... Oh, beech tree. I thought it said branch. What the heck? He glided toward them and landed noiselessly in a towering beech tree. He climbed carefully along one of the branches, holding tight to his broomstick, trying to see through the leaves. Below, in a shadowy clearing, stood Snape, but he wasn't alone. Quirrell was there too. Harry couldn't make out the look on his face, but he was stuttering worse than ever. Harry strained to catch what they were saying. Don't know why you wanted to meet me here, of all places, Severus. Oh, I thought we'd keep this private, said Snape, his voice icy. Students aren't supposed to know about the Sorcerer's Stone, after all. I took a little break to eat and listen to some Big Feet stories. But yeah, basically this whole entire stream is reading. I'm trying to finish this one.
Drink water, you dehydrated bitch!
So that afterward I can read Galo, the Fall of Reach. And yeah, I guess now's a good time for a hydration. Thank you for that redemption. Back in my day, this is how we used to listen to stories on the radio. Part of my streams is just becoming like a put it on in the background while you're doing chores and listen to the spooky stories or listen to the Harry Potters or the Halos. Unfortunately, I cannot both play games and read the stories, read my books at the same time. So for now, we're just doing the reading. Okay, where were we here? I thought you weren't allowed to read books. I don't know. I've never seen any rule against it. I checked, I looked, I did my research. I think also because it's pretty old, so I think it's fairly close to being, I guess if she weren't alive anymore, it would be pretty close to being in the public domain. And so, I mean, I haven't had any problems yet, so I guess it's okay, right? Cops didn't see me, I didn't do it. Yeah, so as long as, if nobody reports the streams and it's not actually against the rules, then they don't have nothing on me. But yeah, once I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and just make the actual audiobook file of the entire reading, and then that'll be on the YouTube channels for any future
audiobook listeners who want to hear me practicing my voice training as well as doing some voice acting of these characters. But I don't think it'll be necessarily copyright infringement. I technically don't even actually know if there are any laws or rules that only certain people are allowed to do audiobooks if they're paid to do so by the publishing company or something. I would imagine there is something like that, but if nobody knows in this tiny little stream, then nobody knows, and that's okay. Okay, so we're here back with Quirrell and Snape in the Forbidden Forest. Don't know why you wanted to meet me here, of all places, Severus. Oh, I thought we'd keep this private, said Snape, his voice icy. Students aren't supposed to know about the Sorcerer's Stone, after all. Harry leaned forward. Quirrell was mumbling something. Snape interrupted. Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet? Severus, You don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell, said Snape, taking a step forward. I don't know what you know perfectly well what I mean. An owl hooted loudly, and Harry nearly fell out of the tree. He steadied himself in time to hear Snape say, Your little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting. But I don't... Very well, Snape cut in. We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decide where your loyalties lie. He threw his cloak over his head and strode out of the clearing. It was almost dark now, but Harry could see Quirrell standing quite still, as though he was petrified. Harry, where have you been? Hermione squeaked. We won! You won! We won! Shouted Ron, thumping Harry on the back. And I gave Malfoy a black eye, and Neville tried to take on Crabbe and Goyle single-handed. He's still out cold, but Madame Pomfrey says he'll be all right. Talk about showing Slytherin. Everyone's waiting for you in the common room. We're having a party. Fred and George stole some cakes and stuff from the kitchens. Never mind that now, said Harry breathlessly. Let's find an empty room. You wait till you hear this. He made sure Peeves wasn't inside before shutting the door behind them. Then he told them what he'd seen and heard. I think this is Harry talking. It must be. So we were right. It is the Sorcerer's Stone, and Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him get it. He asked if he knew how to get past Fluffy, and he said something about Quirrell's hocus pocus. I reckon there are other things guarding the stone apart from Fluffy. Loads of enchantments, probably. And Quirrell would have done some anti-dark art spell that Snape needs to break through. So you mean the stone's only safe as long as Quirrell stands up to Snape? Said Hermione in alarm. It'll be gone by next Tuesday, said Ron. Chapter 14. Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. There's 17 chapters, right? So 14, 15, 16, 17. 4 more chapters. Should I stop here or save? I feel like I could do one more chapter. Page 228. And when is it's typically about 10 pages, so let's go to page 238. See if that's the end of the chapter. 241 is the last page of this chapter. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll finish this chapter here, and then next time we will do the last 3 chapters. The final act. The final showdown. Phew. Fuck, I need more waters. Fuck. Fucky wucky. I must have had like so much soda yesterday that even now the water is making me burp. It's not my fault. I didn't do nothing. Chapter 4. Oh, the chapter artwork is a little baby dragon that's just hatched out of an egg. And he looks pretty thin and slender. He's got little black wings that are like sharp, kind of like sharp bat wings. And he's got spikes all along his spine, even onto his tail. He's got little tiny flames that are coming out of his mouth, and then tiny little puffs of smoke. Or I guess the puffs of smoke are bigger than the flames. And that is the chapter art. Okay. Chapter 14. Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. Quirrell, however, must have been braver than they'd thought. In the weeks that followed, he did seem to get... In the weeks that followed... Like, smaller? I feel like that's smaller. In the weeks that followed, he did seem to be getting paler and thinner, but it didn't look as though he'd cracked yet. Every time they passed the third-floor corridor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione would press their ears to the door to check that Fluffy was still growling inside. Snape was sweeping about in his usual bad temper, which surely meant that the stone was still safe. Whenever Harry passed Quirrell these days, he gave him an encouraging sort of smile, and Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. Hermione, however, had more on her mind than the Sorcerer's Stone. She had started drawing up study schedules and color-coding all her notes. Harry and Ron wouldn't have minded, but she kept nagging them to do the same. Hermione, the exams are ages away. 10 weeks, Hermione snapped. That's not ages. That's like a second to Flamel. Wait, what? That's not ages. That's like a second to Nicholas Flamel. But we're not 600 years old, Ron reminded her. Anyway, what are you studying for? You already know it all. What am I studying for? Are you crazy? You realize we need to pass these exams to get into the second year? They're very important. I should have started studying a month ago. I don't know what's gone into me. Unfortunately, the teachers seemed to be thinking along the same lines as Hermione. They piled so much homework on them that the Easter holidays weren't nearly as much fun as the Christmas ones. It was hard to relax with Hermione next to you, reciting the 12 uses of dragon's blood or practicing wand movements. Moaning and yawning, Harry and Ron spent most of their free time in the library with her, trying to get through all their extra work. I'll never remember this, Ron burst out one afternoon, throwing down his quill and looking longingly out of the library window. It was the first really fine day they'd had in months. The sky was a clear, forget-me-not blue, and there was a feeling in the air summer was coming. Harry, who was looking up Dittany and 1,000 magical herbs and fungi, didn't look up until he heard Ron say, "Hagrid, what are you doing in the library?" Hagrid shuffled into view, hiding something behind his back. He looked very out of place in his moleskin overcoat. Fuck, what's his accent again? "Just looking," he said in a shifty voice that got their interest at once. "And what are you lot up to here?" He looked suddenly suspicious. "You're not still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are you?" "Oh, we found out who he is ages ago," said Ron impressively. "And we know what he's guarding."
And we know what that dog's guarding. It's the sorcerer's Shh! Hagrid looked around quickly to see if anyone was listening. Don't go shouting about it. What's the matter with you? There are a few things we wanted to ask you, as a matter of fact, said Harry. About what's guarding the stone, apart from Fluffy. Shh! Said Hagrid again. Listen, come and see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything, mind, but don't go rabbiting about it here. Students aren't supposed to know. They'll think I've told you. See you later, then, said Harry. Hagrid shuffled off. What was he hiding behind his back? Said Hermione thoughtfully. Do you think it had anything to do with the fuck? She doesn't say sorcerer there. Fuck. You think it had anything to do with the stone? I'm going to see what section he was in, said Ron, who'd had enough of working. He came back a minute later with a pile of books in his arms and slammed them down on the desk. Dragons, he whispered. Hagrid was looking up stuff about dragons. Look at these. Dragon species of Great Britain and Ireland. From Egg to Inferno. A Dragon Keeper's Guide. Hagrid's always wanted a dragon. He told me so the first time I ever met him, said Harry. But it's against our laws, said Ron. Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709. Everyone knows that. It's hard to stop muggles from noticing us if we keep riding dragons in the back garden anyway. But it's hard to stop muggles from noticing us if we keep... Fuck. It's hard to keep muggles from noticing us if we're keeping dragons in the back garden. Anyway, you can't tame dragons. It's dangerous. You should see the burns Charlie's got off wild ones in Romania. But there aren't any wild dragons in Britain? Said Harry. Of course there are, said Ron. Common Welsh green and... what the heck is this word? Hebridean? Hebridean? I think it's Hebridean. Common Welsh greens and Hebridean blacks. The Ministry of Magic has a job hushing them up, I can tell you. They have feds! They have magical magician feds of their own. What the heck? They're hiding the dragons just like our feds are hiding the big feets and the Elamaus. The Ministry of Magic has a job hushing them up, I can tell you. Our kind have to keep putting spells on muggles who spotted them to make them forget. See, look, it's just like the fucking Men in Black with their fucking... when they spray that white stuff on people. Literally exactly the exact same thing. Literally, actually, like seriously, it's kind of like, but not exactly. What on earth's Hagrid up to? Said Hermione. When they knocked on the door of the gamekeeper's hut an hour later, they were surprised to see that all the curtains were closed. Hagrid called, "Who is it?" before he let them in, and then shut the door quickly behind them. Is that stifling or stifling? I think it can be pronounced either way, right? Stifling? Stifling? I think I'll just go with stifling. It was stifling... Oh my god. It was stifling hot inside. Even though it was such a warm day, there was a blazing fire in the grate. Hagrid made them tea and offered them stoat. Hagrid made them tea and offered them stoat sandwiches, which they refused. So, you wanted to ask me something? Yes, said Harry. There was no point beating around the bush. We were wondering if you could tell us what's guarding the Sorcerer's Stone, apart from Fluffy. Hagrid frowned at him. Of course I can't, he said. Number 1, I don't know myself. Number 2, you know too much already, so I wouldn't tell you if I could. That stone's here for a good reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts. I suppose you've worked that out and all. Beats me how you know about Fluffy. Who's saying this? Hermione. Oh, come on, Hagrid. You might not want to tell us, but you do know. You know everything that goes around here, said Hermione in a warm, flattery voice. Hagrid's beard twitched, and they could tell he was smiling. We only wondered who had done the guarding, really, Hermione went on. We wondered who Dumbledore had trusted enough to help him, apart from you. She's fucking manipulating him. What the heck? She's fucking giving him all this flattery and shit. Oh my god. Fucking can never trust women. All they do is manipulate your feelings, make you feel good about yourselves when they want something in exchange. Unreal. Never trust a woman. Hagrid's chest swelled at these last words. Harry and Ron beamed at Hermione. Well, I don't suppose it could hurt to tell you that. Let's see. He borrowed Fluffy from me. Then some other teachers did enchantments. Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall. He ticked them off on his fingers. Professor Quirrell and Dumbledore himself did something, of course. Hang on, I've forgotten someone. Oh yeah, Professor Snape. Snape? Yeah, you're not still on about that, are you? Look, Snape helped protect the stone. He's not about to steal it. Harry knew Ron and Hermione were thinking the same as he was. If Snape had been in on protecting the stone, it must have been easy to find out. If Snape had been in on protecting the stone, it must have been easy to find out how the other teachers had guarded it. He probably knew everything, except, it seemed, Quirrell's spell and how to get past Fluffy. You're the only one who knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid? Said Harry anxiously. And you wouldn't tell anyone, would you? Not even one of the teachers? Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore, said Hagrid proudly. Well, that's something, Harry muttered to the others. Hagrid, can we have a window open? I'm boiling. Can't, Harry. Sorry. Harry noticed him glance at the fire. Harry looked at it too. Hagrid? What's that? But he already knew what it was. In the very heart of the fire, underneath the kettle, was a huge black egg. Ah, said Hagrid, fiddling nervously with his beard. That's Where did you get it, Hagrid? Said Ron, crouching over the fire to get a closer look at the egg. It must have cost you a fortune. Won it, said Hagrid. Last night, I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game of cards with a stranger. Think he was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest. But what are you going to do with it once it's hatched? Said Hermione. Well, I've been doing some reading, said Hagrid, pulling a large book from under his pillow. Got this out the library. Dragon breeding for the pleasure and profit? What the heck? Pleasure and profit, that sounds like something else. Maybe he just wants a dragon girl GF. Oh my goodness. I got this out the library. Dragon breeding for pleasure and profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in here. Keep the egg in the fire. Cause their mothers breathe on them, see? And when it hatches, feed it on a bucket of brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. And see here how to recognize different eggs. What I got there is the Norwegian Ridgeback. They're rare, them. He looked very pleased with himself, but Hermione didn't. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, she said.
But Hagrid wasn't listening. But Hagrid wasn't listening. He was humming merrily as he stoked the fire. Okay, I'm gonna have to go ahead and take a pee break here. I've been drinking too much water. I'll be right back. My dick is getting longer. Okay. Where do we leave off? You have a wooden house, said Hermione's. The Hermione's. I gotta get my keyboard back. Okay.
Hey, Arby, would you pity? What happened?
Did you guys find that moth yet? Did he escape? Did he escape justice? I should just do a whole entire stream where I'm doing my throat exercises to get my proper range of voices. So now they had something else to worry about. What might happen to Hagrid if anyone found out he was hiding an illegal dragon in his hut? I almost read that. I stopped myself just in time. But I almost read that as illegal alien. Illegal Mouse. Wonder what it's like to have a peaceful life, Ron sighed as evening after evening they struggled through all the extra homework they were getting. Hermione had now started making study schedules for Harry and Ron too. It was driving them nuts. These nuts? Then, one breakfast time, Hedwig brought Harry another note. Hedwig brought Harry another note from Hagrid. He had written only 2 words. It's hatching. It feels like she's like literally trolling. She has Hedwig, Harry, Hagrid. Oh my goodness. How many H-named characters are there? Ron wanted to skip herbology. And go straight down to the hut. Hermione wouldn't hear of it. Hermione, how many times in our lives are we going to see a dragon hatching? We've got lessons. We'll get in trouble. There's nothing to... And that's nothing to what Hagrid's going... Fucking Christ, what the heck? And that's nothing to what Hagrid's going to be in... Okay. That's such a weirdly written piece of dialogue. Or maybe it's just reading it aloud like this. That makes it a little weird to try to get it correctly on the first time. We've got lessons. We'll get in trouble, and that's nothing to what Hagrid's going to be in when someone finds out what he's doing. Shut up, Harry whispered. Malfoy was only a few feet away, and he had stopped dead to listen. How much had he heard? Harry didn't like the look on Malfoy's face at all. Ron and Hermione argued all the way to herbology, and in the end, Hermione agreed to run down to Hagrid's with the other 2 during the morning break. When the bell sounded from the castle at the end of their lesson, the 3 of them dropped their trowels and When the bell sounded from the castle at the end of their lesson, the 3 of them dropped their trowels at once and hurried through the grounds to the edge of the forest. Hagrid greeted them, looking flushed and excited. Ow! I got an itch on my nose the whole entire time, and I couldn't scratch it. It's nearly out, he ushered them inside. The egg was laying on the table. There were deep cracks in it. Something was moving inside. A funny clicking noise was coming from it. They all drew their chairs up to the table and watched with bated breath. once there was a scraping noise, and the egg split open. The baby dragon flopped onto the table. It wasn't exactly pretty. Harry thought it looked like a crumpled brack? Harry thought it looked like a crumpled black umbrella. Its spiny wings were huge compared to its skinny jet body, and had a long snout with wide nostrils, the stubs of horns, and bulging orange eyes. It sneezed. A couple of sparks flew out of its snout. "Isn't he beautiful?" Hagrid muttered. He reached out a hand to stroke the dragon's head. It snapped at his fingers, showing pointed fangs. She literally woke up just to meow a couple times and then go back to a sleepings. Why is she like this? Why she gotta do this? "Isn't he beautiful?" Hagrid murmured. He reached out a hand to stroke the dragon's head. It snapped at his fingers, showing pointed fangs. "Bless him, look, he knows his mummy," said Hagrid. "Hagrid," said Hermione, "how fast do Norwegian ridgebacks grow exactly?" Hagrid was about to answer when the color suddenly drained from his face. He leapt to his feet and ran to the window. "What's the matter?" "Someone was looking through the gap in the curtains. It's a kid. He's running back up to the school." Harry bolted to the door and looked out. Even at a distance, there was no mistaking it. Malfoy had seen the dragon. Something about the smile lurking on Malfoy's face during the next week made Harry, Ron, and Hermione very nervous. They spent most of their free time in Hagrid's darkened hut, trying to reason with him. "Just let him go," Harry urged. "Set him free." "I can't," said Hagrid. "He's too little. He'd die." They looked at the dragon. It had grown 3 times in length in just a week. Smoke kept furling out of its nostrils. Hagrid hadn't been doing his gamekeeping duties because the dragon was keeping him so busy. There were empty brandy bottles and chicken feathers all over the floor. I've decided to call him Norbert," said Hagrid, looking at the dragon with misty eyes. He really knows me now. Watch. Norbert! Norbert! Where's Mummy?" "He's lost his marbles," Ron muttered in Harry's ear. "Hagrid," said Harry loudly, "give it 2 weeks and Norbert's going to be as long as your house. Malfoy could go to Dumbledore at any moment." "Thanks, driver." "Why you gotta be so loud for?" "Hagrid," said Harry loudly, "give it 2 weeks and Norbert's going to be as long as your house. Malfoy could go to Dumbledore at any moment." Hagrid bit his lip. I know I can't keep him forever, but I can't just dump him. I can't." Harry suddenly turned to Ron. "Charlie," he said. "You're losing it too," said Ron. "I'm Ron, remember?" "No, Charlie, your brother, Charlie, in Romania, studying dragons. We could send Norbert to him. Charlie can take care of him and then put him back in the wild." "Brilliant," said Ron. "How about it, Hagrid?" And in the end, Hagrid agreed that they could send an owl to Charlie to ask him. Fucking Moist Critical is gonna get a dragons. The dragon's gonna be the next pro player of Moist Esports. The following week dragged by. A Wednesday night found Hermione and Harry sitting alone in the common room, long after everyone else had gone to bed. The clock on the wall had just chimed midnight when the portrait hall burst open. Ron appeared out of nowhere as he pulled off Harry's invisibility cloak. He had been down at Hagrid's hut, helping him feed Norbert, who was now eating dead rats by the crate. "It bit me," he said, showing off his hand, which was wrapped in a bloody handkerchief. I'm not going to be able to hold a quill for a week. I tell you that dragon's the most horrible animal I've ever met. But the way Hagrid goes on about it, you'd think it was a fluffy little bunny rabbit. When it bit me, he told me off just for frightening it. And when I left, he was singing it a lullaby. There was a tap on the dark window. "It's Hedwig," said Harry, hurrying to let her in. "She'll have Charlie's answer." The three of them put their heads together to read the note. "Dear Ron, how are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian Ridgeback, but it won't be easy getting him here. I think the best thing we... Oh my goodness, why am I fucking about these words? I think the best thing we... Oh my goodness, I fucked it up again. I think the best thing will be to send him over with some friends of mine who are coming to visit me next week. Trouble is, they mustn't be seen carrying an illegal dragon. Could you get the Ridgeback up the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? They can meet you there and take him away while it's still dark. Send me an answer as soon as possible. Love, Charlie. They took another look. We've got the invisibility cloak, said Harry. It shouldn't be too difficult. I think the cloak's big enough to cover two of us and Norbert. It was a mark of how bad the last week had been that the other two agreed with him. Anything to get rid of Norbert and Malfoy. There was a hitch. By the next morning, Ron's bitten hand had swollen to twice its usual size. He didn't know whether it was safe to go to Madame Pomfrey. Would you recognize a dragon bite? By the afternoon, though, he had no choice. The cut had turned a nasty shade of green. It looked as if Norbert's fangs were poisonous. Harry and Hermione rushed up to the hospital wing at the end of the day to find Ron in a terrible state in bed. It's not just my hand, he whispered, although it feels like it's about to fall off. Malfoy told Madame Pomfrey he wanted to borrow one of my books so he could come and have a good laugh at me. He kept threatening to tell her what really bit me. I've told her it was a dog, but I don't think she believes me. I shouldn't have hit him. Fuck, what the heck? Hit him at the... Okay. I shouldn't have hit him at the Quidditch match. That's why he's doing this. Harry and Hermione tried to calm Ron down. It'll all be over at midnight on Saturday, said Hermione. But this didn't soothe Ron at all. On the contrary, he sat bolt upright and broke into a sweat. Midnight on Saturday, he said in a hoarse voice. Oh no. Oh no. I've just remembered. Charlie's letter was in that book Malfoy took. He's going to know we're getting rid of Norbert. Harry and Hermione didn't get a chance to answer. Madame Pomfrey came over at that moment and made them leave, saying Ron needed a sleepings. It's too late to change the plan now, Harry told Hermione. We haven't got time to send Charlie another owl, and this could be our only chance to get rid of Norbert. We'll have to risk it. We have got the invisibility cloak. Malfoy doesn't know about that. They found Fang, the boarhound, sitting outside with a bandaged tail when they went to tell Hagrid, who opened a window to talk.
I won't let you in, he puffed. Norbert's at a tricky stage. Nothing I can't handle. When they told him about Charlie's letter, his eyes filled with tears, although that might have been because Norbert had just bitten him on the leg. Arg, it's all right. He's only got my boot. Just playing. He's only a baby after all. The baby banged its tail on the wall, making the windows rattle. Harry and Hermione walked back to the castle, feeling Saturday couldn't come quickly enough. They would have felt sorry for Hagrid when the time came for him to say goodbye to Norbert if they hadn't been so worried about what they had to do. It was a very dark... What the heck was that? I heard a loud sound. Strange. Okay, well, let me go ahead and grab my gun just in case. I honestly have no idea what that sound could have been. Pretty spooky, pretty weird, pretty strange. I think Patches heard it too. She's like looking in that direction. They would have felt sorry for Hagrid when the time came for him to say goodbye to Norbert if they hadn't been so worried about what they had to do. It was a very dark, cloudy night, and they were a bit late arriving at Hagrid's hut because they'd had to wait for Peeves to get out of the way in the entrance hall, where he'd been playing tennis against the wall. Hagrid had Norbert packed and ready in a large crate. "You got lots of rats and some brandy for your journey," said Hagrid in a muffled voice. "And I've packed his teddy bear in case he gets lonely." From inside the crate came ripping noises that sounded to Harry as though the teddy was having his head torn off. "Bye-bye, Norbert," Hagrid sobbed as Harry and Hermione covered the crate with the invisibility cloak and stepped underneath it themselves. "Mummy will never forget you." How they managed to get the crate back up the castle, they never knew. Midnight ticked near as they heaved Norbert up the marble staircase in the entrance hall and along the dark corridors. Up another staircase, then another. Even one of Harry's shortcuts didn't make the work much easier. "Nearly there," Harry panted as they reached the corridor beneath the tallest tower. Then a sudden movement ahead of them made them almost drop the crate. Forgetting that they were already invisible, they shrank into the shadows, staring at the dark outlines of two people grappling with each other 10 feet away. A lamp flared. Professor McGonagall in a oh my goodness, why am I fucking up? Bathrobe. Professor McGonagall in a tartan bathrobe and a hairnet had Malfoy by the ear. "Detention!" she shouted, "and 20 points from Slytherin. Wandering around in the middle of the night. How dare you?" "You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter's coming. He's got a dragon." "What utter rubbish! How dare you tell such lies? Come on, I shall see Professor Snape about you, Malfoy." The steep spiral staircase up to the top of the tower seemed the easiest thing in the world after all.
The steep spiral staircase up to the top of the tower seemed the easiest thing in the world after that. Not until they stepped out into the cold night air did they throw off the cloak, glad to be able to breathe properly again. Hermione did a sort of jig. Malfoy's got attention. I could sing. Don't, Harry advised her. Chuckling about Malfoy, they waited, Norbert thrashing about in his crate. About 10 minutes later, 4 broomsticks came swooping down out of the darkness. Charlie's friends were a cheery lot. They showed Harry and Hermione the harness they'd rigged up so they could suspend Norbert between them. They all helped buckle Norbert safely into it, and then Harry and Hermione shook hands with the others and thanked them very much. At last, Norbert was going, gone. They slipped back down the spiral staircase, their hearts as light as their hands, now that Norbert was off them. No more dragon. Malfoy in detention. What could spoil their happiness? The answer to that was waiting at the foot of the stairs. As they stepped into the corridor, Filch's face loomed suddenly out of the darkness. "Well, well, well," he whispered. "We are in trouble." They'd left the invisibility cloak on the top of the tower. Fuck. And I think that's all for today. Should I stretch it for one more chapter? Chapter 15. There's chapter 15, 16, and 17 left. Let's see. There are a total of 313. We're at page 242. And the last page is about, I think, 310 or something. 240. Ah! No! Spoilers! Don't look! Close your eyes! Avert thine gaze! 241. 242. So it's about 60 pages left. I can do 60 pages next time. But yeah, I think we'll leave it. I think that's a good spot to leave. They got caught. They got catched by Filch. And they were too happy that they forgot their invisibility cloak. Fucking dumb kids. Imagine being a dumb, estupido kid. What an idiot. Okay, so that's how many chapters did I read today? Let's see. We read chapter Quidditch is where we started. So we read chapter 11, 12, 13, and 14. And I'm tempted to read 15. So we read 4. We could read 5 chapters today, but I think I'm kind of pushing it. I should rest up my voice for tomorrow. So we'll do that. We'll definitely finish Harry Potter tomorrow, assuming the internet does not want to die on me and anything along those lines. So we've got that planned for tomorrow. I'm tempted to do a bit more spooky stories. Should I do... I could do some news. Let me look up if there's any interesting articles for today. I have a couple of them saved, a couple news articles saved up from earlier this week. But I just want to cover something quickly. I don't want to get too in-depth into reading too much news. I gotta relax my voice here. Gmail will help you write your emails now. How to access Google's new AI tool. New Batman film, Brave and the Bold, lands the Flash director. I don't see anything interesting yet. Oh, hey, Patches. When did you wake up? Reddit CEO slams protesters, says he'll change moderator rules. Oh, yeah, I wanted to look up if there are any Turn on the music real quick. If there's any spooky music, any spooky stories. Because I did read that one spooky ghost in the highway, and I want to see if there's more like that. Let's look up ghost. See what pops up under the news. I want spooky ghost. None of these are actually spooky ghosts. They're people pretending to be ghosts. They're talking about like fucking actors and ghost guns. There's nothing cool under ghosts. I want spooky ghost stories. How about aliens? The Emotes. Fact checked. Video showing an alien in Las Vegas mixes CGI video and news report audio. Does it now? I actually want to look at that one because I was not at all considering that they may have used CGI for that. NASA astronaut claims that aliens have prevented a nuclear war on Earth. Are aliens a mogos or a dream? Okay, let's have a look at this article here first. Claiming that their fact checking reveals that the video of the Las Vegas supposed alien is CGI. From Reuters fact check on June 13th, 2023. Fact check. Video showing an alien in Las Vegas mixes CGI video and news report audio. The audio from a news report about an alleged alien spotting has been edited onto a digital creation showing an alien-like being. Posts online, however, thought the edited clip was a real news report. A tweet here with over 10... I don't care about tweets. Oh, this is a different one. That's... okay, that's the... if this is what is... The fucking... Okay, this is what showed up in the thumbnail on the news search. So I thought I was talking about this one. So they're talking about a completely different one. This might be loud as fuck, so let me mute the audio real quick. I fucking hate it when it does that. When you play a video and it starts off at max volume and it just fucking spooks you. So if it is super loud, I'm gonna save you from that. Let me be the one to suffer alone. Yeah, it was super loud. You should thank me for saving your eardrums. But it sounds as if it's taking the audio from this incident here, from the Las Vegas one. I have never seen this footage before, so I don't know where it's from.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we terrified of it.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 guys and...
Yeah, no, I've never seen this footage before, but the fact that they're intertwining this actual police emergency call with this footage, somebody's trying to either make these people look like liars, or they're just trying to troll. But by attaching this person's this emergency call to this footage that is very clearly fake. I mean, okay, buddy. Okay, buddy. Yeah, sure. I believe it. It's real. Yeah, I see the alien. I think it's quite a disservice to the people who actually believe they saw something. Just cosplays in the replies. The fence doesn't match the fence in the original video. Yeah, that too. Oh, fuck no! I closed my other article. Unlucky. gnews.google.com, and then we looked at NASA claims aliens stopped nuclear war. Okay, here we go. I found it. And so yeah, these people are just okay. Well, I don't need to read the rest of the article. We already know what's going on here. Spooky aliens. Spooky. What the heck? They're showing feet over here. Look at these feet. Fuck off. How do I make you fuck off? I fucking closed it. I paused it and then closed it and I scrolled up and it fucking popped up again. What did it take? Okay, I've never heard of this website. Indie 100. Therefore, it is more than likely untrustworthy. It's probably just like a sensational and or parody website. By Harry Fletcher, NASA astronaut claims that aliens have prevented a nuclear war on Earth. Could we have aliens to thank for preventing a nuclear war on Earth? That's what one former NASA astronaut has claimed. Edgar Mitchell, let's go see if this is an actual person who actually exists, and or an actual person who works at NASA. Edgar Mitchell was a United States Navy officer, aviator, test pilot, aeronautical engineer, ufologist, and NASA astronaut who served as the lunar module pilot of Apollo 14 in 1971. He spent 9 hours working on the lunar surface in the Fra Mauro Highlands region and was the 6th person to walk on the moon. Mitchell passed away February 4th, 2016 at the age of 85. Okay, so he was a real person. We'll have to fact check and verify whether or not the claims and statements in this article match up with reality, according to what other sites and other outlets claim to be reality. Edgar Mitchell, who was involved in the Apollo 14 mission, gained a reputation for sharing conspiracy theories when he arrived back from the moon in 1971. Mitchell was the 6th man on the moon and was the lunar module pilot on Apollo 14. Before his death in 2016, Mitchell spoke at length, claiming that aliens visited Earth. Speaking to the Mirror, he alleged that aliens were responsible for preventing nuclear war between the US and the Soviets at the height of Cold War tensions. At the time, Mitchell focused on the White Sands Missile Range facility in New Mexico. White Sands was a testing ground for atomic weapons, and that's what the extraterrestrials were interested in, he said. They wanted to know about our military capabilities. My own experience talking to people has made it clear that ETs have been attempting to keep us from going to war and help create peace on Earth. They seem to be doing a very good job of it so far, trying to divide the nation by pumping out these fake crash landings and making these fake CGI videos. And also, speaking of that video we saw, it's like this is just me, my opinion. People who maybe I can make one group of distinction, but in general, I believe that people who can't look at a video like that and nearly instantaneously determine that it is fake, that it is CGI or has some kind of computer editing or digital alteration, people who cannot identify that quickly, they probably shouldn't be around, just saying. especially younger people. And my one distinction of a group of people that maybe we can excuse is older people, because they weren't born with technology. They haven't spent their entire lives with phones and computers and the internet. Maybe millennials who were like me, who were born before the internet and computers and phones were as crucial to everyday life. Maybe for those of us who were born in those times, maybe I can make a slight exception. However, for anyone who was born with internet in their life, with YouTube in their life in particular, with video, online video, that includes older millennials, or is it younger millennials? Younger millennials, Zoomers, and so on. Anyone in those categories, in those age ranges, who cannot tell that video was fake, I think they, maybe we should do a little something to them. Maybe they should cringe themselves. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so he's talking about the ETs wanting to know about our military capabilities. White Sands Missile Range is where the first atomic bomb was tested in 1945, and Mitchell claimed that officers there had told him aliens had shot down missiles flying over the site. Interesting. We'll have to see if other places are reporting that as well. The claims were, as you'd expect, disputed. UFO expert Nigel Watson told IFL Science at the time, "To me, this is just another case of UFO fantasy and speculation. When you try getting to the facts, it's like trying to herd cats." Meanwhile, a UFO conspiracy theorist recently described the South Pole as an air traffic control hub for aliens. Whoa! I saw an episode of this in Men in Black. They literally had something like this, where there was the I think it was Antarctica, which is basically the South Pole, where there's alien mouse there, and they're taking off, or trying to take off. A recent discussion centered on the Amundsen Scott South Pole, which Eric Hecker claimed communicated with, quote, exotic crafts by sending neutrino rays up into space. What the heck? Hecker went... that's a good name too, Hecker. Hecker went further by talking about, quote, digital optical modules, buried a mile beneath the surface under the ice. He claims they were buried in order to detect neutrino interactions while being deep enough not to interfere with radiation readings. So I guess then that episode of Men in Black was like literally actually about this. On the Amundsen Scott South Pole. What the heck is that? Amundsen Scott South Pole. Yeah, right. The South Pole Station. Why doesn't it say South Pole Station? I assume that's what it is, but here it just makes it sound like it's something else. They probably copy pasted it and just took out station. Let's see. Digital optical modules buried a mile beneath the surface. Okay, so let's go back to look at the Mitchell here on Wikipedia. What's his first name again? Edgar Mitchell. Let's see, Edgar Mitchell. Where is the part about UFOs? Views on UFOs. This is the Wikipedia entry for Edgar Mitchell. Views on UFOs. Mitchell publicly expressed his opinions that he was, quote, 90% sure that many of the thousands of unidentified flying objects or UFOs recorded since the 1940s belong to visitors from other planets. Dateline NBC conducted an interview with Mitchell 1996, during which he discussed meetings with officials from 3 countries who claimed to have had personal encounters with extraterrestrials. He offered his opinion that the evidence was such, quote, alien contact was, quote, very strong and, quote, classified by governments who were covering up visitations and the existence of alien beings' bodies in places such as Roswell, New Mexico. He further claimed that UFOs had provided, quote, sonic engineering secrets that were helpful to the U.S. government. Mitchell's 1996 book, The Way of the Explorer, discusses his journey into mysticism and space. Let me see if I can find that book here on Open Library. The Way of the Explorer by Edgar Mitchell. Edgar D. Mitchell, The Way of the Explorer, an Apollo astronaut's journey through the material and mystical worlds. So they do have it here available, so that's good. Two stars. 1 rating, 1 want to read, 1 have read. Subjects, religion and science, astronauts, biography, Apollo, Project Apollo. Okay, I will add this to my want to read collection. In 2004, he told the St. Petersburg Times that a, quote, cabal of insiders in the U.S. government were studying recovered alien bodies, and that this group had stopped briefing U.S. presidents after John F. Kennedy. He said, quote, we all know that UFOs are real. Now the question is where they come from. On July 23, 2008, Edgar Mitchell was interviewed on Kerrang Radio by Nick Margerson. Mitchell claimed, I got like a fucking random mosquito bite or something. Mitchell claimed that Mitchell claimed the Roswell crash was real and that aliens have contacted humans several times, but that governments have hidden the truth for 60 years, stating, quote, I happen to have been privileged enough to be in on the fact that we've been visited on this planet and the UFO phenomenon is real. In reply, a spokesman for the NSA, a spokesman for NASA stated, NASA does not track UFOs. NASA is not involved in any sort of cover-up about alien life on this planet or anywhere in the universe. Dr. Mitchell is a great American, but we do not share his opinions on this issue. In an interview with Fox News on July 25th, 2008, that's 2 days after that previous radio interview, Mitchell clarified that his comments did not involve NASA, but quoted unnamed sources, since deceased, at Roswell who confided to him that the Roswell incident did involve an alien craft. Mitchell also claims to have subsequently received confirmation from an unnamed intelligence officer at the Pentagon. In an interview for Ask Men, published March 6, 2014, Mitchell said that he had never seen a UFO, that no one had ever threatened him over his claims regarding UFOs, and that any statements about the covering up of UFOs being a worldwide cabal was, quote, just speculation on my part. Nice meme. I thought you said, in 2004, he said in the St. Petersburg Times that, quote, a cabal of insiders in the U.S. government was studying recovered alien bodies. And then here, in 2014, 10 years later, he says he's never seen one, he's never had threats, and any statements about the covering up of UFOs being a worldwide cabal. Okay, it was just speculation on my part. So I wish I could see the full quote, because the only thing that's quoted here is, quote, just speculation on my part. However, in this case, it says a worldwide cabal, whereas in the initial claim in 2004, the only quoted words are cabal of insiders. However, cabal of insiders is followed immediately by in the U.S. government. So he's claiming that there's a cabal of insiders in the U.S. government, but he has no intel, no claims about a cabal, a worldwide cabal of insiders. But I suppose that's like an obvious assumption to make. If there are insiders in the U.S. government, then why would he also not assume the same of other world governments? And or why would he not assume that governments are working together? Government insiders are working together. That seems like a fair assumption to make about this initial statement about cabal of insiders in the U.S. government. In 2015, Mitchell said in an interview with the Daily Mirror that extraterrestrials, quote, had been attempting to keep us from going to war with Russia and help create peace on Earth. He also said that, quote, White Sands was a testing ground for atomic weapons, and that's what the extraterrestrials were interested in. They wanted to know about our military capabilities, which lines up and matches up with the article that we just read. So let's have a look at the South Pole base. Let's do South Pole Research Center. Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. Is there anything here about things buried 1 mile deep? What did he call it? Digital optical something? Neutrinos. Here you go. Detect neutrinos. Go away. Oh my god, fuck off. I'm done zooming. Stop. Go away. Why is it? Fuck off. I want to control it. Oh, why would they? Jesus Christ, that's so infuriating. The fucking zoom and the zoom drop down and the control F drop down are overlapping. What the Christ? Who designed you? Let's see. The Amanda Ice Cube experiment makes use of the 2-mile thick ice sheet to detect neutrinos which have passed through the Earth. An observatory building, the Martin A. Pomerantz Observatory, was dedicated in 1995. The importance of these projects changed the priorities in station operation, increasing the status of scientific cargo and personnel. Where does it specify, if at all, that there are these thingies buried underneath, 1 mile underneath, to identify and detect these thingies? I'm gonna go ahead and remain skeptical about that claim that the article made until I see evidence, because I don't see any evidence here of... Uh-oh, I think my browser crashed! No! Oh, okay, just that one. I don't think I feel like playing any Banished or anything right now, while listening to a spooky Big Feet story. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end here for today. And tomorrow we will try to finish Harry Potter. Hopefully everything goes well so that I do not have any internet issues. And we can quickly finish my book. And then we can do some other things for a little bit before we start Halo, Galo, The Fall of Reach. Okay. Thank you for listening. Good luck. Have fun. Don't die. Don't be stupid. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Try not to swallow your tongue. Take care of yourself. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.